The Seven Briefs. 7 reasons Shaka Zulu was ultimately defeated. Presented by the 7 Briefs. In the valleys of southern Africa. A warrior once walked who changed everything. He was more than a king, more than a conqueror. He was a storm wrapped in flesh, feared, respected, and almost unstoppable. His name? Shaka Zulu, the Lion of the Zulu. From humble beginnings to creating one of the most feared empires in African history, Shaka Zulu was a master of strategy, discipline, and psychological warfare. But even the greatest lions fall. Today, we uncover 7 major reasons Shaka Zulu, the Titan of Southern Africa, was ultimately brought down. 1. Power came fast, and enemies came faster. Shaka's meteoric rise was as stunning as it was disruptive. He transformed a small Zulu clan into a vast militarized empire through sheer charisma and unmatched battlefield tactics. He invented the short stabbing spear, revolutionized close combat, and implemented a regimental training system that turned boys into elite warriors. But greatness breeds fear. As his power expanded, so did the number of those who hated and feared him, neighboring tribes, rival chiefs, even former allies. What began as admiration soon morphed into resistance, and in a land ruled by the spear, every alliance was temporary. Shaka's rise painted a target on his back, and the arrows were already being drawn. 2. His campaigns turned into massacres. At first, Shaka's military genius was admired. He brought order to chaos, uniting scattered clans and securing borders through war. But over time, the line between conquest and cruelty began to blur. Entire villages were razed, survivors were absorbed into the Zulu ranks or hunted down. This era became known as the Mfecane, the crushing, a wave of violence and displacement that reshaped southern Africa. Though some viewed him as a unifier, others saw a tyrant. Shaka's methods, once tactical, began to appear brutal. And in the minds of many, the Lion of the Zulu was no longer a protector, but a threat to them all. 3rd, paranoia poisoned his rule. Power changes people, but unchecked power distorts reality. In the later years of his reign, Shaka became increasingly suspicious, isolated, and paranoid. He believed betrayal lurked behind every smile, every whisper, every loyal face. After his mother, Nandi, died in 1827, something in Shaka broke. He declared a national mourning so extreme that no crops were to be planted, pregnant women were executed, thousands were killed for showing too little grief. What was once disciplined rule turned into fear-fueled tyranny, and in a land where fear ruled, resentment followed close behind. 4th, he alienated his closest allies. Shaka didn't rise alone. He had loyal generals, trusted commanders, even family who believed in his vision. But over time, his paranoia and violent rule began to alienate those very people. Most notably, his half-brothers, Dingane and Mlangana, who once stood by his side on the battlefield. But now, they saw a king who had lost his balance. They saw a man driven more by vengeance than vision. And they began to whisper the unthinkable. What if the lion had to fall for the pride to survive? 5. The Zulu nation. Was exhausted empires aren't built in peace. They're forged in blood and sweat. And under Shaka's relentless campaigns, the Zulu people gave everything. Year after year of warfare, expansion, and strict regimentation drained villages, farms, and spirits. Young men were drafted, families torn apart, entire generations born into war. The constant state of militarization left little room for growth, rest, or recovery. By the time Shaka's internal enemies made their move, his people were tired, not just of war, but of the man who demanded it. The foundation beneath the empire had begun to crack, and no amount of fear could hold it together. 6th, betrayal came from within. A king fell to kin. In 1828 it happened. Shaka's half-brothers, Dingaan and Mlangana, made their move. They didn't need an army. They didn't need a war. They simply walked into his presence and stabbed him to death. The Lion of the Zulu fell not in battle, but in betrayal, slain by his own blood. The news spread like wildfire. The man who built a nation by the spear died by the blade of family. And in his final breath, a chapter of African history was closed, not with glory, but with silence. 7. The world was changing, and he wasn't ready. By the late 1820s, European colonial expansion was accelerating. Traders, missionaries, and settlers, especially from Britain, were establishing deeper roots in southern Africa. Shaka understood war. He understood African politics. But he was not prepared for diplomacy, deception, and foreign manipulation. While he maintained some diplomatic exchanges, his aggressive, isolationist stance left the Zulu kingdom vulnerable to future colonial agendas. He built an empire for his time, but not for the time that was coming. The tide was shifting. And when Shaka fell, the British and Boer settlers watched closely, knowing the Zulu wall had a crack, and they were ready to exploit it. So now ask yourself, what is the true cost of greatness? Is it better to burn bright for a moment, or to endure in the shadows? Shaka Zulu's story is not just about power. It's about pressure, pride, paranoia, and the truth that even the strongest leaders can be undone from within. Subscribe to the 7 Briefs for more powerful truths, the stories history tried to bury. Because greatness is never simple, and every empire leaves behind a lesson.